is the Leaders World, and today we are looking at Visionary Leadership Part 2. We are looking at Visionary Leadership Part 2. If there is a time where the world needed visionary leaders, and for us to understand what visionary leaders or leadership is all about, it is now. It is now. And with me in the studio, we have both of our guests already. They are ready to roll. With us, we have Lady Justice VERA NGASSA, currently working with the Supreme Court of Cameroon. She's been in the judiciary for about 34 years, and she is an adjunct lecturer with a very, very reputable university. She has worked she currently serves with Haggai Institute, leadership, a leadership institution at Hawaii, USA. She has also contributed to groundbreaking decisions and precedents in the area of women's rights and sexual and gender-based violence. She is an author, and she has written extensively on these subjects. And some of her works include Gender Law Report, and she co-authored Issues in Women's Rights. Ladies and gentlemen, if I continued, we'll have the next 5 minutes, and I know you're waiting for Lady Justice VERA NGASSA. You're welcome, ma'am, to the Leaders World. Lady Justice NGASSA is married to Michael NGASSA, and together they have 5 children. You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And thank you everyone for listening.
Beautiful. And with us as well, we have Professor Julius ESUNGE. He is an award-winning mathematics and statistics professor. He is chairman of the Department of Mathematics in a reputable institution. He's a Fulbright scholar, and he has pioneered many entities, and he is a husband and father of 3. He's a pace setter in many domains. And with us to speak on visionary leadership, Professor Julius ESUNGE. You're welcome, sir.
Well, thank you so much. It's an absolute delight to be here, and we're grateful, for the platform, the opportunity afforded us, and as well, delighted to have folks from across the globe tuning in and participating along. So, hello.
And we will be right back.
For your corporate and personal needs.
Leaders World Institute, changing lives, one leader at a time.
So with me, Lady Justice VERA NGASSA, and as well, Professor Julius ESUNGE is with me, and we are talking on visionary leadership today. This is the part 2 of this conversation, and I would just like to begin with Professor Julius ESUNGE. Visionary leadership. When you hear visionary leadership, what comes to your mind, and what was your first thought, or what were your first thoughts when you heard from me that this is what I was requesting that we talk about, sir?
Well, my first thoughts were, this is a complete setup, right? But no, that's a joke. When I hear visionary leadership, I hear the very essential dual dynamic that is needed. It's at the cream, at the peak of that which is needed in this particular hour. There are 2 critical terms. The first of them is vision, and I'm sure we will get into what vision is, and then the second is leadership. And leadership in one word is, I think, like John Maxwell will put it, influence. And so visionary leadership is the ability to influence people with a vision as the driving force. There are many forces that one could consider in influencing people, in moving people, moving organizations, moving entities, moving agendas forward. When we discuss visionary leadership, we're saying we want to actually zero in on the aspect of leadership development and leadership actualization, which is driven not by other considerations, not that the other considerations are not important or significant, but it is driven by some overarching dream and passion and desire to fulfill something that is perhaps of a great interest, of necessity. We're beginning to tap into the aspects of vision. But if there were a more important topic in a day like this, it would be this very one. So you did.
Oh, wow. What an intro. What an intro. When I spoke with our team about this topic, somebody asked me, but why not just vision? Why visionary leadership? And I looked at the person and I said, well, we'll find out in the broadcast. I wasn't about to let the cat out of the bag. Lady Justice VERA NGASSA is here with us. Should we be talking about visionary leadership at all? Why visionary leadership? Why not just leadership? Why not just vision? What were your thoughts when you got the request from us to speak on this topic, ma'am?
Thank you so much, Pastor Faithful. I became very excited because I think that we should have been talking about visionary leadership 20 years ago, not today. Someone once said the future is no longer what it used to be. That is to say, we arrived in a future that we foresaw 20 years ago and discovered that we are quite unprepared and we are embarrassed by the dynamics and the various problems we need to solve. Look at the world as it is today. You know what is going on around us. War is no longer what it used to be. War is no longer linear. It is a guerrilla warfare. And so people who prepared for war 20 years ago are beginning to find themselves surprised. So there's so many changes in the socio-economic and political scene that leave us looking for answers. And what we need now is a shift in leadership to people who can challenge the status quo, can innovate, can have a picture of what the future ought to be and where we're going. And they are able to bring us that picture, articulate it and communicate it to the rest so that the others buy in and take ownership of that future which the leadership, which the leader has brought to them, and everybody runs with it.
Wait, you said something about that we now live in a world that we had seen before, like 20 years ago, but we're not ready for. I don't know if I heard you very well. Could you please explain and expound a little bit more? What did you mean by that?
Who could have foreseen the COVID pandemic?
Okay.
We knew that 2021 was coming. We knew that 2020 was coming. And in fact, when we got into 2020, we were so excited. We said 2020 speaks of visual acuity, a 2020 vision. We're going to see wonders. Some of us thought we will grow wings and fly. We thought we'll probably go to the moon. But when the problems started, we were, we were embarrassed. We were flabbergasted. We were left without solutions. And it took people of visionary leadership to get us to where we are today. People who can create and innovate and solve problems.
Oh, wow, wow, wow. People who can create, people who can innovate, people who can solve problems. And I'm looking and I'm thinking, Professor Julius.
We're doing an online conference right now because a visionary leader or visionary leaders many years ago foresaw that there will come a time when the new normal will not be face-to-face, but it will be virtual.
That's right. So we have all these shifts which are happening and will keep on happening. Professor Julius, your response to what Lady Justice VERA just spoke, I just sense you were thinking to give a contribution to that.
Well, of course, that's really profound. What came to mind is a story that the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. used to say, used to quote. By the way, if you're thinking of models of visionary leadership, that is like one of those in the top 10. He often told the story of a man who left his city down below, went up to a mountain and spent a number of years there. And by the time he returned, the city was nothing like what he had left. This is the potential that is in this moment. This moment is really pregnant. And as Lady Justice NGASSA has noted, we need to capture what's going on here. The rest of humankind is, as it were, caught in a fog. And the responsibility to speak sense and to clear that fog is not resident in any other quarter except in the hands of visionary leadership. Leaders understand that the fog is not the end of the story. The fog is part of the story, but beyond it, there is something. And who can then articulate, model, communicate this reality and imbibe the required persistence. So others can say, well, hang on. This guy, this lady is headed somewhere. They believe in where they are headed, and I need to stick in with them. So this is what we need.
Wow. So this brings me to ask this question about the qualities of visionary leadership, because sometimes people are confused about who to actually believe in, who to actually follow, like who has the answers for where we are now, who has the answers for where we need to be. So what are some of the qualities of visionary leaders, and how can we measure visionary leadership? How do we know this is a visionary leader so we can know if we can trust this person to take us 20 years into the future, 40 years into the future, sir?
Well, so let me just touch on a few, and of course this is going to be an enduring aspect in the conversation tonight. The one thing I want to start off with is that when you and I are faced with a difficult situation, we're not looking to someone who's tentative in their approach. We're looking at somebody who communicates with confidence. We're looking at someone with a track record. We're looking at someone who can show us that, perhaps through their life story, through their experiences, through the challenges that they have overcome. We're looking at someone at the first place who is persistent in terms of their conduct, their character, their messaging. So consistency comes in handy. It's not shall I say, a complete mistake, for instance, when we're discussing current global events, to notice that in the last several years, you've had the same kind of steady hands dealing with major pandemics, helping us navigate. That is no accident, because when you're in a moment of crisis, you need an experienced hand on the wheel. And, it's not a moment for anyone who's tentative. Folks who are tentative can wait. When the fog dissipates, they can come in and give us their opinions and so on. So you need boldness. A visionary leader must be bold. They must capture the essence of what they are telling the people. But a third and important component is, because of the nature of the task, because of the nature of the assignment, whether you're talking in the context of family, in the context of organization, in the context of government, this individual must imbibe a sense of strategic thinking. They should be able to tell us, here is the plan, and here is how we're marching from this plan to that point. But there's also an aspect which is crucial here. There must be a risk taker. No risk, no gain. But something in them should leave us with the understanding this risk is worth taking. Why? Well, because we're seeing their passion for it. We're seeing their ability to communicate clearly, as Lady Justice mentioned a few moments back. And we're seeing their strategic thinking. Alongside the strategic thinking comes a high dose of organizational capacity. Remember, you're in a chaotic situation where most people are on their faces on the floor. They're sitting and they're lamenting and they're, trying to curse darkness and blame the light and all of that. But a visionary leader in the midst of the chaos will have a composure which is informed by some of the pieces already mentioned. And then you toss in the focus with which they perceive the matters. So there are lots of qualities that you're looking at, but at the heart of these qualities, you want to see what is the character of this person. Are they an opportunist who is suddenly looking at a moment when they can cash in on the wind, or they're somebody who has a track record of consistent commitment, passionate engagement, a character that backs their aspirations and the ability to take measured risks, right? Not every kind of risk, but measured risks for that particular moment in communicating what the reality ahead, looks like. And then, of course, in all of this, you find that this individual with a mix of focus and what have you, optimism. right? You got a fog in the room. You need somebody who can tell you this thing isn't going to last. And you need somebody who not only tells you, but they tell you in a way you can believe it. And that brings the magnetic aspect of visionary leaders. They're like a magnet.
Sitting here and listening to Professor Julius, I am asking myself, how easy is it to find a true visionary leader? Lady Justice VERA NGASSA is here, and some of us are sitting and listening to all of these qualities of a true visionary leader. And because I take notes all the time, and some of the notes I have here, he has to be able to communicate with confidence, must have a track record, must have yes, a persistence in conduct, in character, in messaging, must be bold, must be able to capture the essence of what he is communicating, and a sense of strategic thinking, a risk taker, and have a high dose of organizational capacity. And I'm just asking myself, how easy is this to find such leaders in our communities, in society, in the world, in our organizations, Lady Justice VERA NGASSA?
I think in answering that question, we have to also be visionary in our selection. Because one of the things about a visionary leader is his ability to affirm people. That is to say, he is not bound by job descriptions and skills descriptions, but he's able to see beyond the normal skill sets to the potential of the people. So if we're looking for visionary leaders, we ourselves have to be visionary. I tell you, they're all over the place. We've had them in the past, we have them now. We've had Steve Jobs, we've had Mother Teresa, we've had Martin Luther King, we've had Malala. That's I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. Yes. They are all over the place. But we need to be able to discern and to select. And in that, we have to be visionary also in the way we see things.
Now we've been looking at the global scale, talking about people like Malala and Martin Luther and maybe Mother Teresa and some of those other people. If we want to narrow it down to the everyday person, I know these people rised up, is that the English? Yeah, they come up from the ordinary until we all could recognize what they were able to do for the society, and now they are acclaimed all over the world. How does that how does that help us in our different organizations, like the average business person, like the person that's leading a nonprofit, or the person that's just maybe beginning to find who they really are in life? How does this relate with us? Does this concern us in any way, Professor Julius?
Well, that's an excellent question. And again, lest we sound, super terrestrial here, let's bring this home.
Yes.
Each one of us faces every day an opportunity to break out of the pack. Every single individual is afforded every day an opportunity to break out of the pack. What happens is that people often pass those opportunities because they think, I'm not cut for this. Well, let's take a classic example, Dr. Benjamin Carson, right? Gifted hands. That was an opportunity that was presented by pediatric specialists across the globe. And Benjamin Franklin had the courage in his early 30s, I believe, or late 20s. He had the courage to assemble an international team to say, we can do this. It was just an ordinary opportunity in the life of a physician. A physician who works with children and what have you. So the mother down the street has an opportunity knocking at her door as we speak here and now. The individual listening to us across the globe has an opportunity right in front of them. What makes a visionary leader? They solve problems. The essential nature of leadership is problem solving. There's no point carrying a title and saying I'm a leader, and then there are issues talking at you in the face and you just fold your hands. That's cowardice at its core, and that's not leadership. And we have a lot of people in leadership positions who are not leaders. They are title holders, they're office holders. So what I will say to any individual is just look around you. What are the issues in your community? Pick one, dream about a better future as far as addressing that issue is concerned, drum up a plan, put a team together, and match on with a dream. There are challenges, there are obstacles. Tap into a network. This is another piece of visionary leaders, that they work in a network. They're like eagles. Eagles don't fly alone. They fly in batches. They fly together. So, let's bring this home for people to realize it is the challenge you face that opens the door for you. Many will remember a biblical story. Who would have heard of David without Goliath? But that's an opportunity Eliab and David's brothers passed. Saul's men passed that opportunity. David showed up as a visionary leader, and he has the foresight. The foresight is inherent in him because he's standing on a rich tradition. He has a legacy, and he has a track record, the very things we're talking about. And here's a 17-year-old boy who suddenly catapults to national limelight because he saw an opportunity. He developed strategy, and boy, can we keep going? Let me take a break.
Wow.
Yeah,
So in essence, yes, please, Lady Justice, please go ahead. Before Lady Justice, just hold on, please. Before Lady Justice, I know it's boiling up here with visionary leadership, and can you just put in the chat, if you're following us right now, put hashtag break out of the pack. Hashtag break out of the pack. If you are following, if you're listening to us, if you're getting what we are saying here, I'd like for you to put in the comments, hashtag break out of the pack, because that's how we bring it home to us who are not yet maybe at that place of global influence. Breaking out of the pack. Go ahead, Lady Justice. I'm sorry for that interruption. I just had to do this.
No, it's okay. I was just going to add to what Professor ESUNGE is saying. Your name does not have to be the chief of anything for you to be a visionary leader. You don't have to be the director or the doctor, whosoever, or the professor, Dr. Bishop of any organization before you become visionary. It is not the title or the position that makes anyone visionary. You could be a mere worker in an organization, but with what is given to you to do, you see that there is a situation, there's a problem that needs to be solved. There is a status quo. Things are not the way they ought to be. And you have that vision of what things ought to be. And in your little corner, you can bring innovation. You can excite those you are given to work with to say, change can come and change is here and change is possible. This is where we should be in the next 10, 20 years. If we continue running this project the way we're running it, it will fizzle out in the next 5 years. And so we have to think of where this organization will be in the next 20 years. Because a visionary lives in the future. He actually, what do I say? He rewinds the future into the now.
Wow. Visionaries live in the future. They rewind the future into the now. This brings us to another question about visionary leadership and creativity and innovation and those dimensions that, if implemented, can take us from where we are to where we need to be. What are some of those aspects of visionary leadership that are somehow futuristic, Professor Julius?
Well, so it's tough to imagine that there's anything futuristic about a visionary leader. See, because as the Lady Justice pointed out, what you and I call future, for the visionary leader, it's the reality today. It's the now. They are living the dream. They may not be seeing the manifestation of the dream. You remember, I Have a Dream? I Have a Dream was a reality that was 50 years ahead. But this man was living that moment. It was the boldness of a visionary leader to say, here is the dream I have, and I'm living this dream now. The rest of you are hearing me, and I know you got time to catch up. So you know, yes, the essence, the very essence of visionary leadership is talking in the here and now about a future that most people go, excuse me, is this guy in their right mind? Are you okay? And but you
Yeah.
see, they tap into their collaborative potential. They build alliances. I heard a fascinating story when Nelson Mandela passed away. It was told by Dr. Kenneth Kaunda at the funeral service in South Africa. You know, I stayed up all night and watched that service. And Kenneth Kaunda said something. He said, listen, when Peter Botha was in office, he tried several times to engage with him to get Mandela out. And he said, you see, Mr. Botha had these concerns and what have you. He said, and then when Frederick W. de Klerk came into office, you know, he tried to speak with him once, and immediately the way the man responded, he said, I think I have a man. I have a man I can work with. For Kaunda, the dream of Mandela's release was a reality already. All he needed is the right person in the right position to help him actualize this dream. So this is the reality of visionary leadership. Visionary leadership sits in the here and now of a future that many consider unlikely, improbable. And they sit here and they communicate and they build a network. And yes, they must be innovative, because the essence of that future is that it's different from the here and now. And most people caught up in the here and now. So you have to innovate. You have to think outside the pack. I love that hashtag that you just
oh yeah, hashtag break out of the pack.
That's correct.
That is the hashtag for today. And if you're watching us, that is the hashtag. You put in the chat for us, please, hashtag break out of the pack. Because if there is nothing else you remember by the time we are done, you want to remember that you can be visionary, but you have to be intentional about breaking out of the pack. Today we're talking visionary leadership, and Lady Justice NGASSA is here with us, and Professor Julius ESUNGE is here with us. What are some ideologies, Lady Justice, that guide the actions of visionary leaders? What are some of the ideologies that guide their actions? Because it's like when we see them, after some time we know, here they are. How does that come to be? Yes, ma'am.
I would say a visionary leader, first of all, by the key words. A visionary leader sees the future as if it is now. A visionary leader is driven by changing the status quo. He sees change as a reality, but he also sees the ability to make others see. Because a visionary leader does not see alone. He has visual acuity, yes, but he also has the ability to bring others into alignment, so we all see the same thing as if it is happening now. And you know, they just cannot rest in the status quo. When things are in a mess, when things are in a jam, when things are not developing, when we do not see a way forward, a visionary leader is already living in the way forward. He sees the change as if it is real and actual. You know, sometimes I don't count myself to be that visionary, but the way I see things, I'm like, why am I seeing things the way I see them? But to me, that is the reality, and that is what ought to be. And so it's difficult for me to understand another contrary paradigm. I see it so possible that it's difficult for me to understand any difficulty or obstacle that you put in my path.
Tell us about Professor Julius, about not accepting the status quo, about bringing that change that Lady Justice is talking about. She says the visionary leader sees change as a reality. Could you speak into that, please? I just feel like we need to dig more into that, changing the status quo and bringing the future into reality.
Well, thank you so much. If I just take 2 steps back to catch on the last few thoughts of Lady Justice and then talk about change.
Yes, sir.
See, there's something about visionary leadership and visionary leaders. Their priorities in 2 areas define them. So many leaders Many leaders are content to be running programs. Visionary leaders are not, they don't prioritize programs, they prioritize people, because they understand that the greatest commodity on the face of the planet is people. So you will notice that visionary leaders spend their time working, talking, communicating, training, developing people. There's another thing about visionary leaders. They do not prioritize convenience. They prioritize principle over convenience, because they know principles are enduring. So you see, there's this drive for something that is permanent, for something that will outlive them. And they realize principles, number one, would outlive them. People would outlive them. So they spend their energy there. Now, and this is exactly why they look at change for what it is, a necessary presence in the dynamic of the human community, of the human experience. Whether you talk organizations, whether you talk families, whether things are going to change. The baby in diapers today will not be in diapers in 5 years. The baby crawling today will not be crawling in 20 years. So this constancy of change fuels the passion of visionary leaders. Incidentally, this constancy of change scares many leaders. Many quote-unquote leaders who choose perhaps other paradigms are just scared. They're just afraid of change. So for instance, while others are thinking of how do we harness the full potential of the internet, other leaders are thinking, how do we make sure people don't even access the internet? So it's a shift that takes place. The visionary leader understands, I cannot help, things are going to change. I need to be on the front end of the change, not on the back end, because the winners are on the front end. And so this is how they take those risks and what have you. But remember, they're not doing this, as our Lady Justice pointed out, they're not doing this alone. They have a network. They have a process of checking out, is this the moment? Is this the right step? Is this the right? And then they have a gut sense within them, because the other thing about visionary leaders is that they turn to be, trailblazers, or what one may call pace setters. And the idea here is that often they have the DNA of the thing they're talking about. They have the DNA of the thing they're leading. Yeah. So perhaps, in an educational environment or in a government service, for instance, you find this person who basically is the guy who wrote the textbook. I take an example of, General David Petraeus. David Petraeus wrote the textbook on counterinsurgency. And so when the American war in Afghanistan shifted into counterinsurgency, who was the man sent to do the work? The guy who wrote the textbook. But you see, he wrote this years before counterinsurgency was even the way war was done. This
wow.
Is operate.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow, wow. I think I am going to come back here and listen to this live stream. So, I've heard a lot about transformational leadership in leadership circles, and I'm asking myself, how does transformational leadership correlate with visionary leadership? Lady Justice, how does this work? Is it the same thing, or is it that they just have the function using the same principles of operation? How does it work, Lady Justice?
Well, the key word in transformational leadership is change and development.
Okay.
You are able to take a 2-star organization with people who are maybe disappointed and dejected and have no vision of their future, and you transform it into this organism that is vibrant and alive, and it has increased its capacity to maybe 10 stars, and you have people who are they are living their lives with passion and vision, and they're changed. But the difference between visionary leadership and transformational leadership is the future legacy. What makes the difference between a visionary leader and any kind of a leader is that other leaders are very they're very intent and deliberate about their goals and their projects. It may be a 5-year plan, but a visionary leader creates a future and a legacy for future generations. He brings something concrete, which he creates, which generations in future are going to enjoy. That's just the difference.
Professor Julius?
You know, it's interesting. I like to think in terms of examples. Okay, it just makes it easy for me. Let me take Barack Obama. Barack Obama was a transformational leader. There was a moment in American history when America was eager to see, can a black man rise to the highest office? He brought that change into reality.
Yep.
Now we no longer talk about that as a possibility. It has happened. But until you have a critical mass of educated black men and women with the potential to really sit and run the affairs of state, for instance, in America or elsewhere, guess what? There's still work to be done. So there you see a transformational leader come to the scene, cut off a ceiling, and people suddenly say it's attainable. How do they attain it? You need a visionary leader to bridge that gap. You need a leader who comes in to say, this can not only be something that happens once in 50 years, this can actually be something that happens every time. So you have from time to time a leader who shows up in a government office and who says, I remember, and I will not mention names here, but I remember the case of a cabinet official in a nation I will not mention, who noticed that workers were showing up in offices at 9 a.m. in the morning when work should start at 7:30. So he, as the head of government, decided to start visiting different government offices at 7:30 a.m. in the morning. He brought a transformation. But until there's a vision that the people themselves capture to say, listen, every hour of lost engagement is a huge loss to the national economy. It's a huge deficit to the future of the nation. It's a huge deficit to the morale of the workforce and what have you. Guess what? That only lasts for that season. So transformational leadership is pregnant. It's powerful. But the nature of transformational leadership is that it's almost inherently resident in the transformer. That change agent that comes in and clears the way. The difference with visionary leadership is that the visionary leader creates a pipeline and others are just coming through and they're like, how did I even get here? I don't know. They're just following the wind. It's like there's a wind blowing and they're jumping.
I like that word pipeline. I like that word pipeline because some of the conversations that we have at leadership circles sometimes is how people come into an organization or into a community or into a nation and then they bring change. They bring change and they're able to do a lot of good things. But when they go, it's over. When they leave, it's over. And we know a lot that's happening in the world today and great leaders are leaving. But how are they leaving? Is everything going to die before they leave, Lady Justice?
Yep. For sure. Any kind of leadership that makes people look at the personality of the leader, his charisma, and tend to admire him instead of the vision, will invariably die when something happens to that leader. You know, charismatic leaders, sometimes when they are not visionary, they tend to make people worship them. They become autocratic, or you cannot gainsay him, and what he says is law. What have they done? There was a vision in the beginning. We had a plan to get from point A to point B for the benefit of the whole group. But along the way, they look at what he says and not the blueprint of the vision. And so if anything happens to him, it all dies. And in fact, all the followers get scattered. You know, sometimes when I want to know people who are into like cult worship of their leader, talk about the vision, they will forgive you. Let me give you an example for us who are Christians. Tell them that Jesus is not the Son of God. They will say, may God forgive you. But you tell them that their leader is not a true man of God. My goodness, they will rain insults on you. They are ready to fight. They are ready to scatter. They are ready to kill and to despoil, which means that they are worshiping the ministry and the leader more than the ministry giver. And that is where people miss it.
Talking about personality cults, this has been a concern to me as well. And but it seems as if when people begin to be so visionary, and they are able to influence people. We know it's all about influence, and they have all this following, and people begin to believe in their vision and in them, because if they don't believe in you, how do they follow you? That cult begins to be built. How can we avoid such situations, Professor?
That's excellent, because I'm actually looking at an article on Indeed.com that captures as well two important qualities that preserve visionary leaders, true visionary leaders from this cult worship. Visionary leaders are open-minded. See, when you're open-minded, it's a very humbling process, because you understand that you may have your gas tank may be loaded, all the panels of your engine may check out really nice, but you know what? There may just be one tiny thing that the mechanic forgot to look into that will derail that journey. And this is an aspect of true visionary leaders that allows them to remain. I would take a man like Billy Graham, for instance, to remain natural regardless of the heights they attain because of their vision.
What is that aspect?
Well, they're emotionally intelligent. So you bring emotional intelligence. The emotional intelligence does a number of things. Okay. It says, for instance, that I'm not the only geek in town, that there are others. And that's humbling. And that I need to consult, I need to learn, I need to listen to others. And that the journey I'm trying to go, it may be completely innovative, as we say. Yes, absolutely. But I need others to go along with me. And I need to pay the price to bring them on board, but not only to make sure they come on board. I'm not going to fly that plane. I'm not going to do the air traffic control. I cannot do it all alone. And this is the humbling process through which a visionary leader goes through to develop the persistence they need to succeed. And so you dial back to some of the qualities we talked about, and you will find that for the leader to stay relevant, they must keep their eyes on that dashboard, on those qualities. And how do you grow persistence? You don't harvest persistence from a tree. Persistence is one of those things you learn only through hardship. You know, give me a man or woman who says they are a visionary leader. I want to know what they have gone through. I want to know the visions they have put forth that have been rejected and how they have handled that rejection to keep marching forward. And that allows them to quit from believing in self and to quit from having anybody defy them, make of them what they are not. And they're simply saying, listen. And I remember one of my mentors who kept saying to me, it's only a matter of time. You know, when I would say to him, here's this, and he would say, all he would say to me is, it's only a matter of time. And he had so much faith in what I was saying, more than I had. And all he was saying to me is, it's only a matter of time. And so, you see, that networking and that accountability aspect and that prioritizing people over principle. You know, if we had the time, I'll tell you a story I lived not too long ago. But I'll give you.
We should come to that story in a little bit. And I was thinking about Lady Justice and just what you've done with women as far as sexual and gender-based violence is concerned. And the hashtag for today, people, the hashtag is hashtag. What again? Break out of the pack. Yes, that's what it is today. Yes. The hashtag for today is hashtag break out of the pack. Okay, so if you're watching, if you're listening, and you just came on and you don't know exactly what we're doing, now, first thing, put in the comments hashtag break out of the pack. And I'm looking at what you've done, Lady Justice, and how it's of international renown. And what was your motivation? What has been your motivation as far as all these things that you've been doing, not just with the judiciary, but with women especially, and helping to bring those changes in the aspect of sexual and gender-based violence for women?
Yeah, before I answer that question, I really like what Professor Esunge said.
Yes, ma'am.
And I was going to say accountability. Accountability. We are where we are because we have an accountability crisis in our leaders. Accountability mixed with abnegation. That is to say, humility and the readiness to die for the vision is what does it. You know, when you are accountable, you will hear feedback from some people and very hurtful criticisms from people. But because you are humble, you will accept both negative and positive criticism. And that ability to get the feedback gives you the comparative advantage as a leader. What kept me going? I don't know. I don't know. I'm just who I am. I was born a female in an African society with this innate sense of justice. I do not like injustice. I do not like suffering. I have always been asked as a judge whether I would take sides, and I say yes, I will always take sides with the underdog. I hated suffering, I hated oppression, and I
And I
saw
can
a
feel you
world.
still hate it. I could
Yeah,
feel it.
I saw a world in which not just women, but the disadvantaged could come to the courts of justice and
Mm,
receive justice. I
yes.
see justice as a gate. It's an institution, but it is a gateway. I see the courtroom and you know the judiciary as a gateway into that commodity that is called justice. And so whoever is sitting at that gate, you know, justice is neutral. It can be good or it can be bad, depending on who is dispensing it. And so quickly, I realized that whoever sits at the gates of our judiciary institutions determines what kind of justice we get out of there. So the sooner it is manned by righteous people so that they lose the bands of the oppressed and they let those who are bound go free, the better for us. So I had this paradigm of mentoring others. You know, I wasn't always in a position to lead, but in my little corner, I made sure that any opportunity I had, I made sure the underdog, the widow, the orphan, the girl child was protected and got justice no matter what I did. You know, I call myself a judicial activist because where necessary, I will interpret the law as best as I can without breaking the law. And so in my little corner, I began to do what I could before I was ever put in a position where I wielded power. My older sister always says that when opportunity meets preparation, then there is a breakthrough. You know, as a leader, you have to be prepared. Keep practicing what you see. Keep calling those things that are not as though they were. And, you know, keep looking at the future as though it is now. And before you know it, opportunity really does not knock, it just comes. But when opportunity meets preparation, then there is a breakthrough. So basically, that's what I did. And then I soon discovered that I needed to mentor colleagues, I needed to mentor young girls, I needed to mentor young ones with a vision of integrity and credibility of Cameroon judiciary. I know what they think of us, but I believe that we can have a credible and integral judiciary. And that picture just does not leave me. And that is what I try to mentor young ones with. I teach them you have to be excellent in the way you do your work. You have to be more than competent in the way you do your work, and that you can live righteous and still be able to eat and feed your family without dirtying your hands. And
So,
when the opportunity comes, you can bring innovation.
oh
So
yeah.
I don't know if I've explained myself, but you know that's
Thank
the
you
way I
so
see it.
much. You've said a lot in just a few minutes. I remember the first time I ever spoke with you. I have been hearing about you. That's more than 50, what I'm saying now is more than 15 years ago, and
Mhm.
I was organizing this women's conference, and I wanted you to be one of our speakers. So when I approached you, I, wanting you to be one of our speakers, you asked me. You said, so what are you doing now? What are you doing now? Like, I was I was a housewife. I was taking care of my children. So I said, I am a housewife. I'm taking care of my children, taking care of my husband, and also helping in the ministry. And you said, oh, okay. You said because you don't like this thing of people just not doing anything and just
I said that.
and just going about in the name of ministry. I was like, wait, did she just say that? Okay, if she's this kind of person, then I need to be closer to her. That just hit home for me, and I just knew that you were somebody that I needed to walk closer with. And Professor, your journey of visionary leadership. I know, of course, that there is much more, but you told me about Hope Outreach International Ministries. I know there is much more. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about what are your motivations? What are your passions? Why do you do what you do?
Oh boy. Anyway, I've heard a line I would keep for the rest of my days. When opportunity and preparation meet, there's a breakthrough, right? So there's a way we say it in my line of work. Chance favors the prepared mind. Okay, just throw that in there. But I just kept thinking. I could tell my story from many angles. So of course, I grew up in a part of the globe where my complexion is already puts you on a minus, and there are all kinds of undertones, and there are all kinds of risks and what have you. And suddenly you come to the scene with qualities, graces, and abilities you never applied for. Okay, and you have two parties you can throw. You can throw a surprise party, or you can throw a pity party. Okay, the surprise party is to leave the naysayers completely going, are you kidding me? Is this possible? And the pity party is to say, well, you see, this is how I came. What do you want me to do? And it seemed like there was a fire. And that
Oh, wait, did you all hear that? I don't mean to interrupt, guys, but did you all hear that? There are two parties you can throw. Either it's a pity party or a surprise. I think I like the surprise part. I like the surprise
Or
part.
possibility party.
That's correct.
Or the possibilities party. And we are listening to Professor Julius. We'll just have like in 2 minutes what are his motivations and passions for what he does, and then we'll take a few questions.
So the drive for me has always been people. People. How can you make the life of others better? And it doesn't matter to me what journey, what track you take. So in my case, for instance, I spend my time on a college campus teaching the course, the discipline that most people find just ridiculous, right? So I'm at a conference in South Africa and somebody says to me, hey, you mathematicians and magicians, you are alike to me. I'm not going to shake hands with you. And I said, that's totally okay. But you see, that which informs the dread of people can actually be a passion that allows you to serve them at the point where they are weakest. So
Wow.
one of the amazing things for me is that students walk into my class and I tell them, one of your big surprises here is that you will catch yourself happy in a mathematics class. And they say to me, that is not possible. It's not going to happen. And then one day, the same student who came into the room, this is perhaps the third time they're coming to take this course, and they're just beaming with joy. And they will stop me and they'll say, excuse me, professor, you're right. And I don't know how you do it, but I'm actually feeling really happy today. And I'm in a mathematics class. Something isn't right about this. Well, this spreads to other domains, but really, and again, just in a bid to keep this at a level each one of us can access, those following us can access. Just think of what is around you, which informs the fears, the anxieties, the dread of others. And go the other way. I think it was Albert Einstein who said something about the life that is not lived for the good of others. It's just, it's a boring life. So how do you live your life for the good of others? Tap into whatever resources you have, whatever skills you have, and focus on improving the lot of others. That in itself is a vision statement that can carry you for the rest of your days. And as you go improving the lot of others, guess what? Before long, people go, oh, that looks like a visionary leader. How did you start? And you say, well, I simply looked at what challenges there were in my neighbor's kids, or in the kids across the street, in the kids in the foster home, in the kids in the halfway house, or in the prison. And I just said, there's an opportunity. I can go tutor. And I began tutoring, and I got a grant, and then I continued tutoring. There are all kinds of opportunities there. So for me, it is people. It is people. And then, of course, it is principle. Because if you want to succeed in whatever you do, there are rules. Gravity is
beautiful. And we'll come back maybe towards the close with those principles. I like, Professor, how you said it's about principles over convenience, and you've kept on echoing about principles over convenience, and you've also talked a lot about people. It's all about the people. It's about people. It's about people. And we could actually be visionary in every domain of life. If I heard you well, in every domain of life, we could actually be visionary and be able to bring that impact and that influence that people are looking for. We have a question from Jay Bang. Hey, shout out to you, Jay. Thank you for that question. Jay says, can a transformational leader bring a change from the lowest range of the ladder? I'm looking at you, Lady Justice, for this question. Can a transformational leader bring a change from the lowest range of the ladder? I guess. Sure. Yeah. How?
Sure. What do you call the lowest rank of the ladder?
I have no title. I have no title. I am the lowest of the lowest. But I see stuff that needs to be changed.
Wherever you are, which you call the lowest rung of the ladder, are there people around you? And do they need a problem to be solved?
Yeah.
Leadership comes from a desire to solve problems. Are there problems in that your little cell in which you are, or are there one or two colleagues? I said from the beginning, you don't need to be the director or the chief or the president or the doctor, anything of an organization before you bring change. Are there people around you? Do they have a need? Can you solve the problem? Do you see a solution to that problem? And can you bring it to the people and bring them to cooperate with you? Malala was a teenager in the lowest rung of the society.
Right.
I'll give you an example from the Bible. Joseph was, for the most part of his life, the little brother who was taught to be pugnacious, from little brother to pit, from pit to Potiphar's house as a slave, from Potiphar's house to a prisoner in the prison, before he ever got to the prime ministry. Are those not the lowest rungs of the society?
So if I'm hearing you well, Lady Justice, it's about you recognizing that need and doing what you need to do to bring the change. It's not about a title. It's not about a position. It's not about being given a name. And we are running down to the close of this session. This time runs by fast when you have amazing speakers like Lady Justice VERA NGASSA with us and Professor JULIUS ESUNGE with us. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking on visionary leadership. And right now, I would like for us to, if you have a question, we can give room for just one more question. But Professor, if you were to give last words to somebody who has heard you and Lady Justice, all of us speaking, and they are so stirred up, they feel like they can be more, they could be more, and they can give more to their communities, and they don't even know where to begin on this path of being a visionary leader. What is some advice, practical advice you could give to them that will help them to keep going? Or maybe they've seen a need and they've begun, but they've had some challenges and they're wondering what is some advice you could give them?
Well, persistence. You got to persist. You got to persist. You got to persist. I think it's Winston Churchill who gave that famous, commencement address. I don't remember if it was Oxford or Cambridge. This is after the war. And the graduates are seated there and they are looking forward to a long exposition about the dangers of war and the importance of, engagement and what have you. And Churchill gets up and says simply, never, never, never quit. And when they sat down, and it took the audience a while to realize that was it. The speech was done. See, the transformational visionary leader, whatever you want to call him, doesn't wake up in the morning and say, I want to be transformational, I want to be visionary. No. They simply look at the opportunities that life throws at them. They look at those lemons that life throws at them, and they begin slowly to squeeze those lemons. A lemon today, a lemon tomorrow, a lemon the next day, and before you know it, you got a full bottle of lemonade, and the rest of us rush to the stands to buy them.
So if you have that question, keep squeezing those lemons, one lemon a day. Don't give up. It's not the visionary leader that sets out to say, I am going to be visionary. They just see that problem, that situation, and they start putting in the effort and they persist, and other people start saying, ooh, that is a visionary leader. Lady Justice, we have the last question for this broadcast is from John Niba, and he says, shout out to you, John Niba. He says, how can I set workable principles as a visionary leader?
I'm going to answer that question in a different way, because I'm sure many like him are asking, how do I even become a visionary leader? Number one, perception. Perception is not sight. Many of us see, but we do not have vision. We don't perceive. Number two, compassion. There must be that feeling in your heart for the need of the people. So number one, perception, see the need. Number two, feel the need, compassion. Number three, you begin with conception. You know how you carry a child? You don't jump up and you are a visionary leader in 1 minute. It takes a process. You begin to ask, what can I do? Who are the people? What is their need? What is the environment? What are the resources? And then you move to conceptualization. Now you begin vision casting. You start asking, what are the resources I have? Who am I going to work with? What is the timeline? Where am I going to get this from? And then after you finish conceptualizing, you must action. Because a vision without an action is mere delusion. I think it is Thomas Edison who said that. You must be ready to act promptly, take risks, and be adamant. One thing about visionary leadership is that the visionary leaders are adamant, what we call in Cameroon in Pidgin, shindai. They have a never say die attitude, because they have seen the dream, they have seen the future, it is possible, they live there, and they're not just going to accept any other paradigm.
So I'm sitting here and thinking, we should have our guests back, maybe on another session, but like every other thing that has a beginning, this broadcast has come to an end for today. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. Oh, you can have this on YouTube and on our podcast after now. You know what? I'll just stop here. We all will just stop here. Do we agree? Hashtag break out of the pack, and I'll see you next time.
For your corporate and personal needs.
Leaders World Institute, changing lives, one leader at a time.